My name is Vince Stevens. I'm from Escazoni, and I've been in Escazoni all my life. And I work with the alcohol and drug program here for the last 35 years, from full time after about 37 years, 2 years part time, 35 years full time. And I look after our community here in Escazoni and in prevention. I look after 3 in the mainland, and there's only 4 group here now, which we started at 13 reserves. We used to look after 13 communities. It's down to 4 now, so I mean, things have changed. Well, my recovery started in 1975. Came to the alcohol and drug program at that time. There was only one counselor here in Escazoni. I went through detox many times. I started drinking when I was very young. And by the time I hit 24, I was a full-blown alcoholic and a drug addict, pills and other drugs. I was at a place where I didn't think there was no help, because the places I went gave me some solutions. It was kind of a band-aid solution. I stay sober for 4 or 5 days and maybe a week, and then I go back to drinking again. I usually end up back on the community here, and I think the problem was that I went to the same environment I left. And mind you, I was married at 24, and kids and a wife and a home and a job and a car, and it was all taken away from me from the use of alcohol and the abuse of alcohol. I ended up doing a treatment program in Dartmouth in 1975. I think I spent about 54 days in that treatment center, between the mental institution and the drug detox program and the 28-day program. At that time, I finished the program, and I came home, back home in Escazoni, and I was told that maybe that I should go to join the AA group, Alcoholics Anonymous. My choice of drug was alcohol at that time, and I think that I should do something about it. And I think Alcoholics Anonymous showed me a lot of avenues. I didn't think that, I thought that alcohol was my own problem and the only problem that I had. It was at that time. I couldn't stop drinking. I did join the AA, and I found some good friends in AA. My counselor at that time was Joe Denny. He ended up being the director of the program. And Joe was a recovering person too, and I identified with that. And a few other people I started meeting on reserve, and they were in AA, and they were carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous in our community. So I took a shot, and I joined them. I joined the group, and I felt uncomfortable in our home group. So I joined another group in Sydney, and I spent about a year in that group. I didn't feel comfortable in our home. I guess I kind of felt ashamed and kind of guilty at some of the people I met in the group, because I knew them, and some of them are my families, and people I owe money to, and so I felt uncomfortable. And AA told me that you don't have to be in that group if you feel uncomfortable. So I did feel uncomfortable. It took me a year to feel comfortable in this program. So I met a lot of people. I went to a lot of meetings, and Doug K used to drive me around with meetings, and my sponsor was Wilford P. Wilford, he was an alcohol and drug worker too, and Doug. And these are, in my mind, are veterans, and they're legends in recovery. Lawrence Paul, a member too, Joe Denny here. And these guys kind of had an answer to their recovery. And I started feeling good about myself, and I started to get things back. I had lost my license for 5 years, and I lost jobs, and at that point I disconnected with my family. As long as I stayed in AA, I was doing good. I wasn't drinking, one day at a time. This concept of staying sober one day at a time. So I tried to sober up many times, many ways. I tried pledges. I go to the priest and take a pledge, and I go out and drunk again. Promise my mother for my wife or my children maybe, and I stay sober for a little while to go. What worked for me was the AA program. I still say that today. I practiced the program one day at a time. I managed to stay sober for many years, one day at a time. And they used to tell me days would go into weeks and into months and into years. And that happened to me. It took me a long time to accept that. And it took me many years to accept that I'm an alcoholic. I admitted many years of saying that I'm an alcoholic, but deep down inside I didn't believe that. But some nights I go to AA and say I'm an alcoholic. I really didn't mean it. I think I was afraid to accept that, I guess. And one night I went to an AA meeting and I stood up at a meeting and I said I'm an alcoholic, and something happened to me. Hard to describe. It's part of the program. It's part of the 12 steps. You haven't had the spiritual awakening as a result of the steps I was doing. I became honest in the program. I had hope in this program. I had received my faith in this program, I believed in God all my life, but I lost a lot of faith in Him. I could do a lot of things. I had courage to do it. I didn't need alcohol or drugs to do a lot of things in my life. I continued going to meetings, and after all these years, it was 45 years ago that I came to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been here 45 years almost in sobriety. I have never relapsed. God's work for me, God always stood by me. He became my best friend and the spiritual part of this program. Although there was people that continued to help me when I was in bad times, and I went through a lot of dry drunks. I acted like a drunk at times. These are things that you go through in recovery. That you have the spiritual things, you have these emotional things, and physical things that go with your body, change and everything. So after all these years, I really enjoy being sober. I enjoy life in sobriety. Things have changed. Good things happen and bad things happen in my sobriety, but I continue to stay sober. I got my license back, I got a job, and I even started a business. I became a licensed body man, went to school and went to college, and got my life straightened in that area. I think it was 1985. A good friend of mine passed away, and he was in this program, working in this program. And he's a good friend, a recovering person, and he had a heart attack one night. After he passed away, his job came up, so I applied for it, and I got the job. And I still had the business, and for some reason, I didn't pick this job. It was given to me by my higher power. I believe God gave me a job, helped me through my years of sobriety, and I've been here ever since. I love the handicap program. I love the people in the program. I love the clients that come to our program that need help and want help, and the ones that sometimes don't want help, but we continue to help them anyway. But it's been a good journey for me, because I have a lot of friends now. I don't have enemies that I used to have when I was drinking and drugging. And things have been pretty good over the years now, It's been a nice journey, I owe a lot of things, a lot of things to not just the AA program itself. Music has kept me sober. Going to the Sweat Lodge and talking to Sweat and some of the elders in the program, I really enjoy that, just sitting down and talking to them. And talking to the young people and able to say, I've been there and I've done those things, and you can make that change. You can't do it alone. You always need somebody to help you or guide you, or just to talk to you. And I've done that. I try to talk to people in trouble or sad or depressed or looking for somebody to talk to. And I like that. As far as the program here, it's open to anybody.
What types of tips would you have for people who don't like AA? Like if it doesn't, it worked for you, but do you have any tips for anyone who AA doesn't work for them?
Yeah, I think like I said, when you don't feel comfortable in a program, or if you don't feel comfortable talking to people, you can talk to other people or go to other places. Like I said, I started here with the AA program. I didn't like it. I went to Sydney, and I kind of liked it for a while. Then I started going to other meetings all over the island and in the mainland and wherever I was. I got to. I spent a lot of time playing music, entertaining people and entertaining community or whatever, volunteering in the program. Keep myself busy all the time, you know. And if you think that AA doesn't work for you, and sometimes we think that I belong to another group, maybe the NA is another group of Narcotics Anonymous or even Al-Anon. I go to Al-Anon retreats now with my wife. But like I said, I played sports, I played hockey, I played softball, and I really enjoyed myself doing these other activities, you know. To take something out of you, and which was alcohol and drugs, I replaced them with something and replaced them with other people in my life, you know. And that really helped me, because I found myself a very shy person, and when I'm drinking, I'm not shy anymore. I had to overcome all these obstacles in my life, you know, and that worked for me. I talked to a lot of people. I got back to my church, and I talked to spiritual people in my life. I went to the Sweat Lodge, you know, and that kept me sober for many years too. Going to the Sweat Lodge ceremonies and going to the powwows, and you know, where I went to places where I knew there was sober people and spiritual people, and even the Chapel Island mission was always there for me. I go there, and if you're new in the program, if you're new in sobriety, you know, and if this doesn't work, try something else. You know, if you don't agree with this person, go talk to another person. I talked to a lot of elders in our communities, you know. Even talked to my father. My father and I had a relationship, but it was a love-hate relationship. I hated him when he was drunk, but I loved him, you know. And at the end, I could talk to my father before he died and everything, and my mother was saying, you know, and I kept in contact with people that way. Going through all these changes in my life, I needed a lot of support, and they found a lot of support. When a 16-year-old tells that you have a problem, you know, and I think if you can only listen to them, that's all I do. I'm a good listener. I listen to people's problems, you know, and you'd be surprised, listen to a person for 20, 25 minutes just to get their garbage out, you know, and that's what I did. A lot of people listen to my garbage, you know, that was building inside me, you know, and I asked a lot of questions after, you know. For the newcomer, you know, always try to get a sponsor in a program. You know, a sponsor is a person that's been in a program 2 or 3 years. He's got a solid sobriety and it's a good foundation, you know, and practice in the program. Like I said, there's other programs, NDA programs, GA programs, Alateen programs, Al-Anon programs, you know, and there's always some kind of a program. Talk to people that went to a Casio movement and uplifted me when they talked to them, you know, understood where they were coming from. That's what I do today, is just listen to people, you know. I'm a good listener, you know. I don't try not to criticize people. I don't try to judge people.
Do you have any advice for people who have family members who are suffering right now due to alcohol or drugs?
Well, I think one of the things that I've learned in the program is that I've realized that alcoholism is a disease. Same with the drugs is a disease. People suffer from all kinds of disorders. I suffer from I figured I went to a psychiatrist and trying to figure out who I was at some point. And I talked to a psychologist for many years, and I did a lot of cognitive therapy with these people. For the person who's having difficulty with their addictions, try to get yourself into a place where you educate yourself of all these things that are happening to you. Can't identify them. Somebody else will identify them for you. But it's an illness, it's a disease, it affects the family, it affects the whole family sometimes. Even the people that are not drinking, the alcoholic or the drug addicts will affect these people. And sometimes, I'm sure at the end people hated me for who I was, constantly doing the same things over and over again. You know, I sober up and get drunk over. And I think that's the animal of this disease, is that it tells you you're okay when you're not okay. And it's affecting your family, it's affecting your siblings, it's affecting your wives or husbands or whatever it is, it's affecting them somehow, you know. And we don't realize that. It's a miracle that I'm sitting here telling my story, because I should have died a long time ago. Many nights car accidents or whatever, I should have been dead. My higher power, which I call God, and He's come, you know, He has a plan for me, and I've been doing this this over the years. If you're new at recovery, keep going to these meetings until the meeting's over. I remember one gentleman there, he said, I'm going to sober up. If my wife has a little boy, I want to sober up. And his wife had a little boy. And he's been sober, I would say, 48 years. You can do it for somebody, but sometimes it's hard when you do it for somebody. It's easy. The best thing is to do it for yourself. The key here is to do it for yourself. At first you might do it for somebody else, and eventually you're going to. In my life, in my recovery right now, the number one person in my life is my higher power. I get along with him. I talk to him anytime I want. He's my guide, and he directs me to people. He sends me to people, or people that he sends to me. I sometimes I don't realize that he's sending them to me. And I remember one time when you have resentments for many years and guilt and all that. I remember I resented this fellow, or he resented me, and I was in my recovery, and I said, I need to ask for forgiveness, and I didn't have the courage to do it. And then somebody died in my family, and this person came to me and shook my hand. I think that was the start of my forgiveness with him. And then my mother died, and another fellow came to me after 10 years of not talking to him. He shook my hand, and it took my mother and my father to do my inventory with them. And that was a good thing for me. I didn't have the courage to do it myself, but the man upstairs had a plan for me. And these people are my best friends today. Yeah.
So, what do you have as advice for someone who's thinking about, they're in the contemplation stage where they're thinking that, okay, this is a problem and I need to get help? What would their first steps be?
I think you need to pick up the phone. It's easy today, the information you would call detox. When I started my recovery, there was only one group of people that you could call. It was the AA program or the detox program in Sydney. Now in our communities we have the crisis program, we have the NANICA program, we have the Nemo Lodge Treatment Center, and you have all kinds of other programs that are available in our communities, right? And we have mental health people. We have the, like I said, crisis center, the health center. There's so much information out there now. If you're struggling with that, and suicide and death, I thought about suicide. And maybe I did commit suicide at one point when I kept drinking and popping pills and just thinking maybe then it's better to be better off, did. But then I realized that I had children, I had a wife, and I had my family. So that kind of brought me back out to reality. And if you're thinking that way, you need to make contact with people. Make amends to people. Making amends to people is apologize to people. I find that making apologies to people, it's like putting a bandage on a sore and it comes out. But making amends is coming from the heart and saying, I won't do it again. I won't hurt you no more. And then you turn it around, I won't hurt me no more. And that's what happens to me, right? I won't hurt you because I don't want to hurt myself in the process. And that's been my wisdom sharing. That wisdom is that, be good to yourself. If you're good to yourself, you'll be good to people. If you love yourself, you'll love other people, So that's, when you're in that mode where you think nobody cares, it's not a good place to be. One of the things in my life is recovering from my heart. The heart feels everything. The mind is kind of sometimes stupid, makes stupid things or say stupid things, But in my recovery is my heart. I feel you, I care for you, and that way, so that keeps me going. So if you're in that state, find somebody, call the center here, the lodge, or the NANIC program. We have counselors here, crisis center. And there's people out there that care for you or care for me, and we're no different from the person that doesn't drink, because they all have feelings like this.
If you could have one final message to whoever may be watching this, what would that be?
I think if you, the biggest thing I would tell people is not, if you take the drink and the drink takes you, stop, don't do it. Alcohol to some people is no good, it's not good. I know a lot of people drink, and they're good friends of mine are social drinkers, and they'll have a beer and they go home. I'm not one of them, so I mean, there's a lot of them are like that. But it's just like cigarettes, you know, you take that first cigarette and you get addicted to that cigarette or whatever, you know. If you have a addictive character, you know, it's a dangerous sign. If you think you can stop it and you can't, then it's time to look for help. So if you can't control the alcohol or drugs or whatever controls you, then it's time to look for help. It's time to stop. I should have stopped when I was 15, when I knew that alcohol was not good for me. I think the environment that I was in and the friends that I had were always drinking or drugging. I was in a bad environment. And if you realize you're in a bad environment, you need to get yourself out of there and look for a good environment or to help that person in that bad environment. It's a good start. It's just one day, you know, one day at a time, you know. If I can stay sober today, it's feel good about it, feel bad no more about staying sober or staying clean and sober, you know. And I owe it to a lot of people. I owe it to my God, friends out here, my family, all these people that's been around me now, you know. And if you're in that environment that is not good, get yourself out of it. Call me or call Natica or call the treatment center, crisis center, and say you have a problem. And that's the key here, to say you have a problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Vinny.
Well, yeah, a lot of you.